The air in the salvage bay was thick with the smell of ozone, rust, and recycled oxygen. It was a smell Min knew as well as his own hands, which were currently buried in a pile of twisted metal. He sorted through the remnants of a wrecked freighter, his gloves clinking against scorched alloy. Across the bay, his partner G was checking a manifest on a cracked datapad. Her face was lit by the blue glow, her expression tight. "This load is more junk than viable scrap," she said, her voice echoing slightly in the large space. "If we don't find something of actual value in this haul, we won't make the lease payment on the ship next cycle. The Perseverance will be someone else's problem." Min didn't answer. He was too tired. The work was hard, the profits slim, and every day felt like running in soft sand. He just kept sorting. The salvage came from a recent collection sweep through a debris field known as the graveyard. It was mostly scraps from a forgotten skirmish between the Kalar traders and some unknown party, decades old. He pulled out a ruined energy coil, its core cracked and dark, worthless. Next, a piece of hull plating, melted on one edge, basic reprocessing value. His fingers brushed something smooth and cold beneath a sheet of crumpled metal. He pushed the debris aside and pulled it free. It was a helmet. It was unlike any standard-issue human gear or common Kalar design. It was heavy, made of a dull, grayish composite that was chipped and scarred with deep, black carbon scoring, as if it had been caught in a tremendous blast. The visor was a solid, dark piece of smoked material, not transparent. There were no visible markings, no ports for hoses. Felt strangely dense in his hands. "What is that?" G asked, walking over. She peered at the helmet, her nose wrinkling. "Some old mining rig?" "I don't think so," Min said. He turned it over. The interior was lined with a brittle, foam-like material that crumbled at his touch. But nestled in a recess at the crown was a small, hexagonal crystal, clear like glass. A data crystal. G's brief look of interest faded. "It's a relic, probably from some frontier militia 100 years back. The crystal is probably corrupted or empty. Put it with the rest of the low-grade composite. Maybe we'll get a few credits for the raw material." "It's just different," Min said, running a thumb over the cold surface. It felt older than the other wreckage in a way he couldn't explain. "Different doesn't pay our bills, Min," G said softly. Her tone wasn't harsh, just worn out. "We need a big score. A forgotten crate of Kalar energy cells. A working NAV computer. Not a broken helmet." She went back to her inventory. Min looked at the helmet. He had a small, handheld diagnostic scanner on his tool belt, used for checking basic circuitry in salvaged electronics. On a pure whim, feeling a little foolish, he pried the clear crystal from its socket. It was cool and flawless. He blew the dust off it and slotted it into the reader port of his scanner. The device's screen flickered. It usually showed a friendly green interface. Now it flashed with jagged, angular symbols in a deep crimson, a language or code he had never seen. The symbols scrolled too fast to follow. Then, with a soft ping, the screen cleared. A single word appeared in the center in plain, blocky human letters. It pulsed with a slow, steady rhythm, like a heartbeat. "Quarantine." Min stared. The word just hung there, stark and final. Quarantine. A warning. An order. A label. "Gee," he called out, his voice quieter than he intended. "What now?" she asked, not looking up. "Look at this." She came over, impatience in her step. She looked at the scanner in his hand, her eyes fixed on the pulsing word. The impatience drained from her face, replaced by confusion, and then a flicker of something else. A spark of the hope that had been missing for so long. "Quarantine?" she read aloud. "What does that mean? Is that from the crystal?" "It must be," Min said. He tapped the scanner's screen. The word remained. No other data, no file paths, no source identifier. Just that one command. "Maybe it's a warning label," she said, thinking out loud. "From a medical ship or a biohazard container. Something they sealed away." "The helmet doesn't look medical," Min said. He looked from the scanner to the helmet, now just an empty shell on the floor. The crystal was the key. and it had just spoken its first word after who knows how many years in the dark. The salvage bay felt colder suddenly. The hum of the recyclers and the distant clang of work from other bays seemed to fade away. This piece of scrap was talking. It had been labeled, marked, set apart from everything else for a reason. G reached out and took the scanner from his hand. She examined the word, her brow furrowed. This isn't nothing, she admitted, the pragmatic part of her wrestling with sudden possibility. But a warning isn't a treasure map. Could just mean this thing is dangerous. It might be best to. She didn't finish the sentence. They both looked at the helmet. It sat there, inert and silent once more. But the word on the scanner continued to pulse. Quarantine. It was no longer just scrap. It was a question. And for two salvagers on the edge of losing everything, a question was more valuable than any answer they currently had. Min picked up the helmet again. It felt heavier. We take it back to the ship, he said. We run a deeper scan. In private. G nodded slowly, her eyes still on the glowing word. For the first time in months, their next step wasn't about sorting junk. It was about solving a mystery, and that, for now, was enough. The salvage ship Perseverance was not a pretty sight. Its hull was a patchwork of repairs, and the interior was cramped, filled with the constant low thrum of the life support system. The air smelled of old wiring, instant noodles, and recycled air. It was home. Min placed the strange helmet gently on the small table in their shared living area. G slotted the data crystal into the ship's main computer terminal, a more powerful machine than the handheld scanner. The screen fizzed with static for a moment, then displayed the same single, pulsing word, quarantine. Still just that, G said, tapping the console in frustration. No data packets, no location logs, nothing to explain it. It's like a signpost with only one word on it. Min was examining the helmet's empty interior with a pen light. The crystal must have a trigger, a condition. He thought back. It only showed the word after I put it in the reader. Maybe it needs a specific signal. Or a specific question. He took the crystal from the ship's console and reinserted it into his portable scanner. The word quarantine reappeared. He pressed a few buttons, trying to access a root menu or a file tree. Nothing worked. On a hunch, he held the scanner's small emitter up to the helmet's dark visor and pressed the broad-spectrum scan button. A low hum filled the room. It didn't come from the scanner. It came from the helmet itself. A deep, subaudible vibration that they felt in their teeth and bones more than heard. The scanner's screen exploded with light. The angular crimson symbols returned, cascading in a waterfall of data. Then they resolved into an image. A star chart. It was not a standard guild map. The constellations were unfamiliar, the notations in the same strange script. But one point was clear. A single star system pulsed with a slow, steady red light, far off the established trade lanes, deep inside a nebula-cloaked sector marked with hazard sigils. Coordinate string flashed beside it, clean and precise. The graveyard is in the opposite direction, G whispered, leaning in. Her reflection was in the dark visor. That's uncharted. No shipping routes, no beacons. Nothing but cosmic dust and old stories. The low hum from the helmet began to change. It was seeping into the ship's systems. The lights in the cabin flickered. A soft, garbled voice came from the comm speaker, then faded into static. The hum was a signal, and it was looking for something. Disconnect it. Get it off the ship, G said, moving towards the helmet. Before Min could react, a heavy knock sounded on the Perseverance's main airlock door. They both froze. The hum from the helmet ceased abruptly, as if it had never been. The star chart on the scanner vanished, replaced once more by the lone, silent word, quarantine. Min shoved the helmet and scanner into a storage locker and sealed it. G smoothed her jumpsuit and went to the door's viewport. She relaxed slightly. It's Tay. Tay was another independent salvager. He and Min had a friendly rivalry, sometimes sharing tips, sometimes competing for the same wrecks. He was a good pilot, but he liked to talk and had a habit of poking his nose where it didn't belong. The airlock hissed open. Tay stepped in, his smile wide. Min, Gee, I heard you pulled in a load from the graveyard's edge. Find anything good or just more Kalar junk? His eyes were bright, scanning their small living space with casual interest. Just the usual, Min said, his voice a little tight. Some composite, a few coils. Nothing special. Really? Tay said, walking further in. You left the bay in a hurry. Looked like you found something that spooked you. He was joking, but his observation was sharp. We're behind on payments, Tay, Ji said, crossing her arms. We're not spooked, we're busy. What do you want? Just being a good neighbor, Tay said, holding up his hands. He glanced at the closed storage locker for a moment too long. A friendly word. New ship docked at high berth. A kite-class corporate security vessel. Shiny. Serious. They're asking around very quietly about historical artifacts, specifically from old battle sites. Thought you should know, since you just came from one. His smile didn't reach his eyes this time. He was delivering a message. After Tay left, the silence in the Perseverance was heavy. Ji looked at the locker. He knows something's up. If he knows, others might. Who asks about historical artifacts with a security ship? Min said. A museum doesn't need armed guards. A few hours later, Min went to the outpost's common mess hall to get some real food. The usual noisy chatter was subdued. People were talking in low tones. He saw it at the docking viewport, the kite-class vessel. It was sleek, weaponless in appearance but built for speed, its hull polished to a soft gleam. It looked surgical and clean, completely out of place among the battered salvage haulers. He heard two dockworkers talking. Agent in charge is named Sue, one said. Asked for all docking records from the last cycle. Didn't say please. Corporate. They never do, the other grumbled. Probably chasing some patent violation or a stolen trade secret. Min didn't stay to hear more. He walked quickly back to the Perseverance. Sue, a corporate agent with a fast ship, asking about old things from battlefields. And they had just brought an old, quarantined helmet from a battlefield onto their ship. He entered the ship to find Ji staring at the main terminal. She had reinserted the crystal. The star chart was back, the red pulse over the nebula steady. He was warning us, Ji said, not looking away from the screen. Tay, in his way, that agent, Sue. She's not here for scrap. She's here for that. She pointed at the crystal. The helmet was not treasure. It was not a tool. It was a target. And they were now standing right on top of it. The word on the scanner was no longer just a warning. It was a label for them, too. They were contaminated by what they had found. The air in the Perseverance felt thin and electric. Min and Ji didn't need to say much. They moved with a tense, shared purpose. They had to leave Waypoint Sigma, and they had to leave now. The only plan was to run. We can't jump straight from the dock, Ji said, her fingers flying over the navigation console. Sue's ship will have a lock on the bay's traffic control. The second we request departure clearance, she'll know. We go dark, Min said, already pulling on his flight harness. Use the old maintenance exit tunnel, the one near the waste reclamation pumps. It's tight, and it's not for full launches. It's for getting out unseen. Plot a course. Anywhere but here. We'll figure out the rest later. They worked fast. Min powered up the engines to a low, quiet hum, not the full roar needed for a proper launch. Ji bypassed the dock's comms link, sending a false system check signal to the station's computer to explain their power activity. It was a simple trick, and it wouldn't hold for long. The maintenance tunnel was a cramped, grimy shaft used for utility drones. The Perseverance scraped and groaned as Min guided it in, the ship's hull screeching against the old metal walls. Alerts flashed on his screen about minor hull stress. He ignored them. After a tense minute, they emerged from the far end of the tunnel into open space, hidden from the main docks by the outpost's bulky superstructure. The stars were sharp and cold against the black. Now, Ji said. Min slammed the throttle forward. The engines roared to life, pushing them back into their seats. The ship shot away from Waypoint Sigma. Got a course, Ji announced. Asteroid belt in the Halo cluster. We can lose them in the rocks, maybe hide our signature. It's 2 hours at full burn. They both watched the rear sensor display. For 10 minutes, there was nothing but the shrinking dot of the outpost. Then, a new, faster blip detached from the station. It moved with a sharp, predatory grace, accelerating rapidly. "It's her," Min said quietly. The Kite-class ship was already gaining. A calm voice came over the open comms channel. "Salvage vessel Perseverance. This is Agent Sue of Kral Consolidated Security. Cut your engines and prepare for docking and inspection. You are in possession of corporate property." Min looked at Ji. She shook her head, her face pale but determined. He switched off the comms. The silence that followed was worse. Sue's ship did not hail them again. It just kept coming, closing the distance with terrifying speed. They reached the edge of the asteroid belt, a chaotic field of tumbling rocks and ice. Min threw the Perseverance into a wild, weaving path, using the larger asteroids for cover. For a while, it worked. The sensors showed Sue's ship struggling to match their erratic course. They ducked behind a colossal, spinning rock. "Maybe we lost her," Ji breathed, her knuckles white on the edge of the console. A searing, bright blue laser bolt cracked past their viewport, missing them by meters. It vaporized a small asteroid ahead of them into dust and fragments. "She's not trying to disable us," Ji said, her voice hollow. "She's trying to scare us. Or she's aiming to kill." Another bolt slammed into a rock to their port side. The Perseverance shook violently from the shockwave. Warning lights flashed. Proximity alarm blared. Min jerked the controls, sending them diving down and to the right. He pushed the old ship harder than he ever had. But he knew it wasn't enough. The Perseverance was a sturdy workhorse. Sue's ship was a predator. The third shot. This one didn't miss. It grazed their primary power coupling at the rear of the ship. There was a deafening bang, a shower of sparks from the console, and then a sudden, sickening silence as the main engines died. All the lights went out, replaced by the dim, red glow of emergency batteries. The constant hum of the ship ceased. They were drifting, spinning slowly, powerless. On the rear camera feed, they saw Sue's ship approach. It moved smoothly, without hurry now. A tractor beam, glowing a faint orange, reached out from its hull and latched onto the Perseverance. The beam locked with a heavy thud they could feel through the deck. They were caught. Ji slammed her fist on the dead console. "Do something, Min. Anything." Min's mind was blank with panic. They had no weapons, no engines, no tricks. His eyes darted around the dark cabin and landed on the storage locker. The helmet, the scrap that started it all. It was stupid. It was hopeless. But it was the only thing in the room that wasn't from their world. He stumbled out of his chair, ripped the locker open, and grabbed the heavy, cold helmet. "What are you doing?" Ji yelled. He didn't answer. He pulled the helmet onto his head. It was too big. It settled over his eyes, plunging him into darkness. For a second, nothing happened. He felt like a fool. Then, a jolt. Felt like ice water poured down his spine. A brilliant, white light exploded behind his eyes, not in the room, but in his mind. Shapes, numbers, schematics, and a torrent of alien symbols flooded his thoughts. It was overwhelming, painful, and in the center of the storm was one clear, focused idea. Command. An option. His mouth opened. The voice that came out was not his own. It was flat, synthesized, and carried a terrifying, ancient authority. It spoke through the helmet's external grille, filling the silent cabin. Contingency protocol. Breach. Summoning QRF. The word QRF hung in the air. Quick reaction force. As soon as the words were spoken, the helmet on Min's head shuddered. A fine network of cracks appeared across its surface. Then, with a soft, dry sound, it disintegrated. It turned into a gray powder that fell from his head and shoulders, drifting to the floor like ash. Min collapsed back into his chair, gasping. The mental link was gone. The helmet was gone. Only the faint, orange glow of the tractor beam from Sue's ship, holding them fast, remained. He looked at Ji. She was staring at him, her eyes wide with a mix of horror and disbelief. Nothing happened. The void outside was silent and empty. Sue's ship began to reel them in, slowly and surely. Min's desperate gamble had failed. They had traded a piece of scrap for a mouthful of dust. And now they were prisoners. The Perseverance was a dead thing, pulled through the silent dark. Inside, the only sounds were the rasp of Min's breathing and the faint, failing beep of the emergency power cell. Through the viewport, the sleek, predatory shape of Sue's kite-class vessel grew larger and larger, its docking bay doors beginning to iris open like a mouth. Min sat slumped in his chair. The strange energy that had flowed through him was gone, leaving a deep cold and a hollow shame. He had tried a child's magic trick in a moment of adult desperation, and now G was going to pay for it. She stared at the drift of gray dust on the floor, her face blank with shock. On the main console, a single dormant screen flickered. A thin line of white light cut across the blackness. Then another at a right angle. A third completed a simple triangle. It was a boot-up sequence, but unlike any they had ever seen. It was stark, military, and utterly silent. Sue's voice returned over the comms, calm and confident. "Prepare to be boarded. Your cooperation will be noted." The words were a formality. They were already caught. Then the stars behind the kite-class ship rippled. It was not a warp flash. There was no loud bang or burst of light. It was a wrongness. Space itself seemed to tear like old cloth. A jagged, silent rift of deepest black, outlined in crackling violet static, split open directly behind Sue's vessel. From the rift it slid. A ship, but the word felt too small, too clean. It was a slab. A brutal, angular wedge of gunmetal gray and charcoal black, so large it dwarfed both the Perseverance and Sue's ship combined. Its surface was pitted and scarred, marked by ancient burns and impacts that told of battles in some long-forgotten night. It had no graceful lines, no polished surfaces. It was a fortress. It had no running lights, no glowing engine nacelles. It hung in the void like a tombstone. On the bridge of the kite-class ship, Agent Sue froze. Her calm evaporated. Every sensor on her sophisticated vessel screamed in unison, then went silent. The thing that had appeared read as a total void. No heat signature. No electromagnetic emissions. No life signs. It absorbed all scans, giving back nothing. What is that?" her tactical officer whispered, his voice thin with fear. Before Sue could answer, a new signal blared through their comm system. It was not on a standard channel. It was on an archaic, low-frequency military band, a frequency used centuries ago by Earth's first deep space fleets. The audio was scratchy, as if traveling a great distance through time. It held no emotion, no question, only a flat, synthesized statement. "Identify threat." Sue's training reasserted itself. An unknown, possibly hostile contact. Standard corporate security protocol. Demonstrate strength. She cleared her throat, forcing authority into her voice. "Unidentified vessel, this is Agent Sue of Crawl Consolidated. You are interfering in a lawful recovery operation. Withdraw immediately." There was no response. The monolith simply hung there, dark and silent. Sue's jaw tightened. Fear was turning to anger. Target its central mass with a warning shot. One pulse only. Her weapons officer tapped his screen. A single, bright blue laser lanced out from the kite-class ship. It was a clean, powerful beam designed to cut through hull plating. It struck the center of the gray slab and vanished. There was no explosion, no scorch mark. The energy was simply gone, absorbed without a trace. A new line of text appeared on the dead screen of the Perseverance. It was in plain, blocky human letters. "Targeting systems active." Inside the ancient vessel, something woke up. It was not a crew. It was a mind. A cold, logical intelligence built for one purpose. Sue saw a single, faint light appear on the surface of the gray slab. A small, red dot. Pulsed once, slowly. Her blood ran cold. Evasive pattern. Now. Full power to shields. Her pilot threw the ship into a sharp turn. It was too late. The gray ship did not fire a laser or a missile. It emitted a single, perfectly focused pulse of invisible energy, a gravity distortion wave. It hit the kite-class vessel. The first thing to fail was the artificial gravity. Sue and her crew were lifted from their chairs, floating upwards. A second later, the inertia dampeners shut off. The ship was still turning at high speed. The physics were simple and brutal. The ship turned. The crew did not. They were thrown sideways with the full, unsoftened force of the maneuver. Bodies slammed into solid walls and consoles at lethal speed. The sound was a series of sickening, wet thuds over the scream of twisting metal. From the outside, it was silent. Sue's ship simply crumpled in the middle, as if an invisible giant had made a fist around it. Its sleek hull contorted. Its lights flickered and died. The orange tractor beam holding the Perseverance winked out. The gray slab had not moved an inch. The small, red targeting light faded. In the sudden, absolute quiet, the main console of the Perseverance came fully to life. Not with its old, familiar software, but with a new, crisp, green and black interface. Schematics of their own ship appeared. Then, an external view focused on the gray monolith. A line of text scrolled across the top. Connection established. Stand by. Min and G could only stare, breath held. The screen cleared. A simple message appeared, along with a string of numbers and codes that meant nothing to them. But the name did. Vessel designation. CFV-01 Dreadnought. Last logged mission. Sol System Guard. Final stand. 2162. Status. Protocol engaged. Awaiting orders. Silence filled the Perseverance. The only sound was the slow, rhythmic beep of a restored power indicator. Min and G sat frozen, staring at the words on the screen. The crumpled wreck of Sue's ship drifted slowly away into the asteroid field, a dark shape against the stars. Before them, the dreadnought waited, a mountain of silent metal. Min reached a trembling hand towards the console. He touched the screen where the vessel's name was displayed. CFV-01. G read aloud, her voice a dry whisper. Sol System Guard. That's old Earth. Ancient. 2162. Min added. He did the math in his head, his mind struggling. That's over 500 years ago. He looked from the screen to the colossal ship outside. It's a fossil. A ghost. As if hearing him, the console changed. New data streamed across it. It was a status report, but not for their ship. It was for the dreadnought. Sections of the massive vessel were highlighted in green, marked operational. Others were in amber, labeled dormant, low power. A vast majority were dark, labeled section sealed, core directive priority. A small, blinking prompt appeared at the bottom of the screen. Acting Command Authority recognized. Command Protocols. Basic. Query. Commander's intent. Acting Command Authority? G said. She looked at Min, at the dust of the helmet on his shoulders. You. It means you. The helmet made you its captain. Min felt a wave of dizziness. He was a salvager, a man who dug through trash. He was not a commander of anything. He looked at the prompt. He had no idea what to say. He spoke to the empty air, his voice cracking. Who are you? The screen refreshed instantly, the text scrolling with smooth efficiency. Vessel. Combat Force Vessel Dreadnought Class. AI Designation. Steward. Primary Mission. Preservation of Human Continuity. Last Conflict. The Hive War, 2158 to 2162. Threat. Xenoform Swarm Intelligence. Designation, Viridian. Status. Extinct. Standby protocol initiated upon victory. Contingency. Reactivate upon beacon activation by human in extremis. Min and G read the words again and again. The Hive War. Xenoform Swarm. Extinct. They were history, myths from the early days of human expansion. Every child knew the stories of the great lost battles. They were legends. This ship was not a legend. It was real and it was here. It was built to fight a war that ended centuries ago, G said. her eyes wide. And it's been asleep waiting for a beacon, for that helmet. And we woke it up, Min finished. The weight of it was crushing. He had called for help, and he had summoned a god of war from a forgotten age. The console pinged again. A new window opened. It was a tactical scan of the local area. It showed the drifting wreck of Sue's ship. It showed the Perseverance. And far away, at the edge of sensor range, another ship was highlighted, a familiar civilian hauler signature. It was turning, running hard back towards waypoint Sigma. Tay, Min breathed. He followed us. He saw everything. The dreadnought sensors had tracked him. A new prompt appeared. Contact designated. Observer. Threat assessment. Low. Query. Engage? No. Min and G shouted at the same time. The idea of that silent, brutal power being turned on Tay, on a frightened man running home, filled them with cold horror. Do not engage, Min said, trying to sound firm. Let him go. Command acknowledged. Min slumped in his chair. He had just given his first order. The ship had obeyed. It was listening to him. G pointed to the tactical scan. If Tay saw that, he'll talk. Crawl Consolidated will know. They won't send one agent next time. They'll send a fleet. She looked at the dreadnought on the screen. This ship, it's the ultimate weapon. Sue was right. It is corporate property. Lost, ancient human military property. And we have it. The word property hung in the air. Min looked at the mission statement again. Preservation of human continuity. Is that what Crawl is preserving? He asked quietly. Human continuity? Or their own power? He turned back to the console. He had to know more. Steward, he said, trying the AI's name. What is your core directive? Exactly. The text appeared, clean and unambiguous. Core directive. Identify existential threats to humanity. Neutralize existential threats. All other parameters are secondary. An existential threat. Something that could wipe out humanity. Min thought of Sue trying to kill them for a secret. He thought of a vast corporation that would send a fleet to take this ship. Would they use it to protect humanity? Or to rule it? He was not a commander. He was a man with a terrible choice. He held the leash of a sleeping giant that saw the world in black and white. Human or threat? He looked at G, her face etched with fear and wonder. He looked at the gray, silent fortress outside, a relic that had answered a cry for help from a man who had none left to give. The dreadnought waited. It had done its duty. It had eliminated the immediate threat. Now it awaited new orders from its new, and very confused, commander. The Perseverance was now a tiny, fragile lifeboat nestled against the colossal gray flank of the dreadnought. A magnetic dock, gentle but unbreakable, held them fast. An airlock had cycled open on the ancient vessel, revealing a dark passageway. An invitation or an order. We have to go in, Min said. His voice was steadier than he felt. G nodded. There was no other choice. They put on their simple environment suits, the ones they used for patching hull breaches, and crossed the short bridge into the dark. The interior was a shock. It was not the warm, cluttered chaos of their own ship. It was a tomb of clean lines and deep shadows. The air was cold, still, and tasted of metal and age. The only light came from thin, green strips along the base of the walls, casting long, eerie shadows. The gravity was Earth standard, slightly heavier than they were used to on the frontier. They moved down a wide corridor. The walls were lined with sealed, nameless doors. There were no markings, no posters, no personal touches. Everything was functional. Everything was cold. There are no people, G whispered. Her voice echoed slightly in the vast silence. The corridor opened into a large, circular chamber. It was a control room of some kind. A ring of dark consoles faced a massive main viewport that looked out onto the stars and the tiny shape of the Perseverance. In the center of the room, on a raised platform, was a single command chair. It was austere, made of the same gray composite as the walls. As Min stepped into the room, a soft, blue hologram shimmered into life above the main console. It was a simple, rotating symbol, a triangle within a circle. The voice that spoke was the same flat, synthesized tone from the comms. Came from all around them. Acting Commander recognized. Welcome aboard CFV-01 Dreadnought. Steward, Min asked. Affirmative. This installation operates under my directive. Your command authorization permits full situational access. Query. Do you require a threat briefing? Min and G exchanged a look. Yes, Min said. What do you know about Crawl Consolidated? Data began to stream across the dormant screens around the room. Old news reports, shipping manifests, sensor logs from Sue's ship, and fragments of intercepted corporate communications painted a picture. Crawl Consolidated was not just a mining or trade corporation. Its private security force was larger than some planetary militias. The data showed that for years, Crawl scout ships had been quietly, illegally surveying old battlefields from the Hive War era. They were looking for wrecks for technology. They had found a few small things: a damaged energy rifle, pieces of armor. The helmet with its beacon crystal was their biggest find, but they had lost it in a minor skirmish before Min found it. They were trying to reverse engineer lost generation tech, G said, her eyes scanning the data. To sell it, to weaponize it, to control everyone. A specific log caught Min's eye. It was a classified Crawl memo. The subject line read, Project, New Dawn. Objective, monopoly on advanced tactical systems. They don't want to preserve humanity, Min said, the pieces clicking into place. They want to own it. They would use a ship like this to make everyone follow their rules. Analysis, Steward's voice stated. Entity Crawl Consolidated exhibits behavioral patterns consistent with a rising hegemony. Its acquisition of strategic military technology poses a high probability of systemic conflict and suppression of human autonomic development. Threat classification, potential existential. The words hung in the cold air. The Dreadnought didn't see Crawl as a rival company. It saw it as a possible disease, a threat to the whole body of humanity. What are our options? G asked, turning from the screens. The main viewport changed. It showed a star map. Waypoint Sigma was marked. Then, lines of probable attack vectors fanned out from it, showing how a Crawl fleet might approach. Another window opened, showing the Dreadnought's armaments. The list was short, terrifying, and written in simple terms. Gravity distortion projectors. Mass driver cannons, dormant. Point defense grid, active. It was a toolkit for absolute destruction. We can't fight a war, Min said, feeling sick. We can't have this ship wipe out a corporate fleet. Even if they deserve it, that would make us monsters. Clarify, Steward said. Core directive mandates threat neutralization. Most efficient path is preemptive elimination of Crawl's military and industrial capacity. No! Min's shout echoed in the chamber. He took a breath, forcing himself to think. The ship was a hammer. It saw every problem as a nail. He had to be more than that. There has to be another way. A way that doesn't involve killing thousands of people who are just following orders. A way that stops Crawl without becoming what they are. He looked at G. She was thinking, her brow furrowed. The truth, she said slowly. Tay will have told them a story. A scary story about a monster ship. We need to tell a different one. We need to show everyone what Crawl really is. Min looked at the data streams, at the evidence of illegal surveys and weapons research. He looked at the silent, powerful ship around him. An idea, fragile and dangerous, began to form. Steward, he said, can you broadcast a signal? A wideband transmission to every ship, every colony, every outpost in this sector. Affirmative. The vessel possesses a high-gain interstellar communications array. Min pointed to the damning Crawl files on the screen. We don't destroy their fleet. We destroy their secret. We broadcast all of this. Their plans, their illegal searches, what they did to Agent Sue to cover it up. We show everyone that the real threat isn't some ancient ghost ship. It's the corporation that was trying to dig it up and use it to control them. He turned to the viewport, looking out at the stars. He was no longer just a salvager. He was a man standing in the heart of a god of war, asking it to speak instead of shoot. He was choosing a burden far heavier than command. He was choosing to be a messenger. The silence on the dreadnought was profound. Min's words seemed to hang in the cold air of the command chamber. For a moment, there was no response from Steward. The holographic symbol simply rotated. Then the flat voice spoke. Proposed action is non-standard. Broadcasting does not neutralize the physical threat. Probability of mission failure increases. It neutralizes their power, G argued, stepping forward. Her face was lit by the glow of the screens. If every independent trader, every colony, every rival corporation knows what Krull has been doing, they won't be able to act. They'll be surrounded by enemies. The threat will be contained. Another pause. Then the main viewport changed. It showed a long-range sensor scan. From the direction of Waypoint Sigma, a formation of ships was approaching. 6 vessels. 2 were kite-class security ships like Suez. The other 4 were heavier, modified cargo haulers with obvious weapon pods bolted to their hulls. Corporate Response Fleet. Incoming hostiles. Estimated arrival, 47 minutes. Query. Confirm tactical adjustment to broadcast protocol. Min's mouth went dry. The hammer was ready. All he had to do was let it swing. He looked at the data on the screens, the proof of Krull's greed and lies. He thought of the crews on those approaching ships, people with families just doing their jobs. Confirm, Min said, his voice firm. Prepare the broadcast. And prepare to defend. But only to defend. Our primary weapon is the truth. Acknowledged. Loading declassified Krull consolidated files. Wideband transmission matrix charging. The dreadnought hummed to a new kind of life. A deep, resonant vibration pulsed through the deck, different from the terrible silence of the gravity weapon. It was a powerful communications laser aligning, gathering energy not to destroy, but to speak across the stars. On the bridge of the lead Krull ship, the commander was confident. He had seen the fuzzy, terrified report from the Salvagerte. An old, big ship with strange weapons. Probably a derelict with automated defenses. They would overwhelm it. His sensor officer frowned. Sir, the target vessel is emitting an unprecedented energy signature. It's not weapons fire. It's a broadcast. On all frequencies. Audio, video, data. It's flooding the sector. Jamming it, the commander barked. We can't, sir. The signal is too powerful, too clean. It's bypassing everything. It's going everywhere. On mining colonies, on freighters, on rival corporate stations, screens flickered. A crisp, clear signal overrode entertainment feeds and comms channels. It showed classified Krull documents. It showed the logs of Sue's ship, her orders to retrieve the artifact at any cost. It showed the dreadnought's own identification. CFV-01, Sol System Guard, a relic from the Lost Generation. And a simple, scrolling text explained what Krull had been trying to steal and why. Chaos erupted across the comms bands. Voices shouting in confusion, then in anger. Back in the asteroid belt, the Krull fleet entered weapons range. They opened fire. Lasers and mass driver rounds streaked towards the dreadnought. The ancient ship did not move. A shimmering, hexagonal web of light flickered into existence around it just before the impacts. The point defense grid. Lasers were refracted and scattered. Kinetic rounds vaporized into puffs of molten debris. The dreadnought weathered the storm like a mountain in a rain shower. Broadcast complete. Hostiles remain engaged. Threat assessment. Persistent. Disable them, Min ordered, his heart pounding. Only their engines and weapons. No life support. No structural attacks. Implementing limited engagement protocol. The dreadnought finally acted. It did not use the gravity weapon. From hidden ports, precise, bright blue lances of energy shot out. They were surgical. They struck the engines of the lead kite-class ship, not to explode them, but to fuse their critical components into solid, useless blocks of metal. Another beam sliced neatly through the weapon pods of a modified hauler, severing power lines without touching the hull. One by one, the Krull ships fell silent. They drifted, powerless and armed, but alive. Their crews were stunned, unharmed. The comms from the Crawl flagship were frantic, then pleading. They were not just defeated, they were exposed. Every ship in the sector had heard their secrets. Their mission was over. On the dreadnought, Min let out a long, shaky breath. Ji put a hand on his shoulder, her own hand trembling. Threat neutralized. Core directive satisfied. Awaiting orders. Min looked out at the disabled fleet, at the stars, at the fragile Perseverance still clinging to the giant's side. He knew what he had to do. Steward, power down all offensive systems. Return to standby mode. Maintain guardianship of this sector, but only respond to direct, existential threats. No preemptive action. Confirmed. Standing down. The deep hum of the great ship began to fade. The lights in the command chamber dimmed to a soft, standby glow. The dreadnought was going back to sleep, but it would watch now with a different kind of eye. Min and Ji returned to the Perseverance. As they detached, they saw the colossal vessel move, not with aggression, but with a slow, deliberate grace. It positioned itself between the asteroid belt and the Coreward trade lanes, becoming a silent, permanent satellite around a barren moon. A guardian. A warning. They jumped their ship away from the belt, heading towards the frontier. On their comms, the channels were still buzzing with the news. Crawl Consolidated was in full retreat, its reputation shattered. The story was everywhere. Not of a monstrous warship, but of two salvagers who had found a protector and used its voice, not its fist. Min looked at the star chart. They were free. They were not rulers. They were not warriors. They were just keepers of a promise from a lost Earth, that humanity's deadliest weapons should also be its most just. And for now, that was enough.